Okay, let's unpack this. We're kicking off this deep dive, focusing on something really personal, but also very public. Names.
Exactly. And we've got some fascinating sources here that look into the whole aesthetic world of Uyghur personal names.
Right. So our mission, I guess, is to figure out what these names are really telling us. They
Oh,
aren't
I
just
like it.
labels, are they? The sources suggest they're tied deeply into history, culture.
And a specific worldview.
Yeah.
It's easy now to just see a name as an identifier, something on a form.
Mm-hmm.
But these sources really remind us that older beliefs saw names as much more powerful, sacred even, a real part of who you are.
Capable of influencing things, like fortune.
Yeah, bringing good fortune or misfortune. And that idea, that sense that a name carries real weight,
Mm-hmm.
it still seems to be there in the culture.
So as we get into this, we should see how names reflect these aesthetic values, different historical times.
And people's hopes, definitely. Their aspirations for their kids, for themselves. It's like holding a little piece of cultural history.
Or hearing it, yeah. So let's jump in. What's one of the first big ideas the sources bring out about Uyghur names?
Well, one really powerful point is how names act as these evolving cultural markers. They're not static.
Okay.
The sources connect them to like the move toward civilization itself. They become touchstones for national spirit, identity, family heritage.
Right, so they carry the fingerprint of their era, reflecting
Mhm.
daily life, spiritual beliefs, what people hoped for.
Exactly. And as society changes, the names change right along with it. It's quite clear in the sources.
And you can really see that shift, can't you, when you compare, say, ancient names to more modern ones?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just fashion. The sources emphasize it mirrors really deep changes, living conditions, social structures, customs, historical events.
So names are active players in history, not just labels stuck on afterwards.
Precisely. And through all this change, the sources show this consistent thread, this blend of spiritual ideas, wanting noble character, intelligence, and these distinct aesthetic values we're going to talk about.
Okay, so aesthetics. The sources seem to suggest a kind of split. Grandeur for masculine names, grace for feminine ones. Is that about right?
That's a key framework they present, yeah. Grandeur focusing on things like height, sacredness, greatness, and grace emphasizing delicacy, elegance, inner qualities. But let's dive into the masculine names first. This idea of grandeur.
Okay, grandeur. What does that actually mean in this context, according to the sources? How does it show up in names?
Well, grandeur seems to relate to how people perceive significance, power,
Ah.
often drawing inspiration from things in the world that evoke awe.
Like nature.
Exactly.
Mm.
Especially in ancient times, feeling vulnerable before nature, you see reverence for its powerful elements.
And the sources have examples, right, from the Oghuz epic.
Yes, possibly going back thousands of years.
Yeah.
Oghuz Khan supposedly named his son Sun Khan, Moon Khan, Sea Khan, Mountain Khan, Sky Khan, Star Khan.
Wow. Sun Khan, Mountain Khan.
Yeah.
Naming your child after the sun? That's
Yeah.
pretty direct.
It really is. It shows that religious reverence for nature and a clear aesthetic ideal tied to sacredness through greatness. It captures that early worldview.
So what happened next? Did that change?
It evolved as the culture interacted with Manichaeism, Buddhism, Nestorian Christianity. The sources show a shift. Inspiration started coming from animal symbols.
Animal symbols, like what?
One's representing bravery, power. You get names like Bayburi, that's rich wolf, Arslan for lion, Bugra, which is a camel bull, Tubrul, a type of bird of prey, Bars for tiger, Tunga meaning eagle.
Names that sound strong, fierce, raw power almost.
Exactly. That aesthetic continued, but then it transformed again when Islam arrived. The reverence shifted.
How so?
Instead of nature or animals, the sources show inspiration coming from Allah's attributes, the prophets, the caliphs.
Ah, okay, so names like Abduk-lik, servant of the creator, or Muhammad Ali Suleiman.
Precisely.
Hmm.
And the sources frame these not just as religious identifiers, but as signifying deep devotion and this aspiration for spiritual nobility, for moral greatness in the child.
So beyond the religious or the raw power symbols, did names also just directly express hope for courage or strength?
Yes, definitely. The sources highlight names like Alpakut, meaning hero, Begtash, which is Prince Stone, Tash and Timur, stone iron, Timur, just meaning iron, Palat for steel.
Also, Assad for lion, Shirzat for lion cub, Chin Timur real iron. Those sound incredibly solid, formidable.
They really do. And the sources point out this concept evolves again in more modern names. It moves towards more abstract virtues, maybe moral courage, endurance. Names like Kaharaman, another word for a hero, Gayur, meaning honorable or bold, Koresh, which means struggle.
So what's fascinating then is how this core idea, this aesthetic of masculine grandeur, it persists always linked to strength, value, something mighty or noble.
But the source of that ideal changes dramatically across history, from nature's power to animal strength to divine qualities, and then to human virtues.
It's a really clear way names track that cultural journey. Okay, so if masculine names speak of grandeur, the sources say feminine names embody grace. What does grace look like in the Uyghur aesthetic?
Well, for feminine names, the sources suggest the ideals center on qualities like grace itself, modesty, kindness, delicacy, elegance. Women are often seen symbolically as embodying these beautiful traits.
And the names themselves are very symbolic, aren't they? Drawing on nature again.
Hugely. The natural world is a massive source of inspiration. Flowers, especially, are deeply symbolic for women in Uyghur culture. They represent softness, fragrance, beauty.
I was really struck by how common this is in the sources. You see names like Rehan, which is basil, Modin for peony, Rana, meaning beautiful or elegant,
Mm.
and then the sheer number using gull flower. The sources say over 300 combinations. Names like Gulmira, flower princess, Guljanet, flower of paradise, Gulzar, flower garden, Gulperi, flower fairy. What does that sheer volume tell us?
That saturation, that density of floral names, it really underlines how central the flower is as the symbol of feminine beauty. It's not just one option. It's this huge, varied garden of names reflecting all sorts of facets of floral beauty and, by extension, feminine grace.
And buds too.
Yeah.
Gungcha.
Yes. Guncha, buds, symbolizing youth, potential, blooming beauty. So you get guncham, guncha-I, gunchagal.
And the moon, hey, that seems like another really powerful recurring symbol.
Oh, absolutely. The moon represents beauty, purity, brightness, blessing. It's everywhere in names like Iselik, meaning pure as the moon, Ibanu, moon lady or princess, Isama, moon-faced, Ainur, moonlight, Aperi, moon fairy Mahinor, also moonlight. It signifies this luminous, pure kind of beauty.
So flowers and the moon are big ones. Are there other natural elements used?
Yes, definitely. Other natural phenomena pop up. The sun, stars, light expressing warmth, brilliance, grace. Names like Shamsia from sun, Zura, which is Venus, Chopan, the morning star, Khurshid, also sun-related.
Okay.
Even valuable materials like gold, altun, and silver, kumash, get used, like an altunkan or kumashe, symbolizing value, elegance, something precious and refined.
It's almost like the sources are showing us this vocabulary of feminine beauty drawn from everything lovely and valuable in the world.
That's a great way to put it. You even see tall, elegant trees like the cypress, surgi, inspiring names like Surnisa or Suri Kamat, reflecting hopes for a graceful stature.
And delicate things too, like spring flowers.
Exactly. Delicate seasonal things conveying softness, freshness. Mizagul for spring flower, Chimingul for meadow flower, Nilufar, which is the lotus.
But the sources are careful to point out this isn't just about outward appearance, is it? There's a big emphasis on inner beauty too.
A very strong emphasis. Qualities like kindness, modesty, gentleness are highly valued and seen as part of beauty. Names like Siljabaik, gentle lady, Miriam, kind, nautical, delicate flower, Nzugam, my tender one. They directly express these emotional virtues.
So they see those inner qualities as essential parts of feminine beauty.
Absolutely. So feminine names really paint this picture of grace drawn from nature's beauty, from precious things, and from inner moral qualities.
These two ideals, grandeur for men, grace for women, they're incredibly rich. But the sources also mention a third major area of aesthetic value, one that seems to cut across gender lines.
Yes, and that's crucial. It's a beauty of knowledge, the beauty of life itself, and social aspiration.
Knowledge as beauty. Tell me more about that.
Knowledge itself is viewed as a core kind of inner beauty, maybe even the highest human quality, and seen as key to a happy life. This deep respect for education and wisdom, it's clearly reflected in naming.
So you get names that literally celebrate intelligence.
Exactly. Names like Alim, meaning a knowledgeable scholar, Ilimnur, light of knowledge, Urpan, wisdom, Equil, wise, Otker, sharp-minded.
And the sources draw a contrast here, don't they, between earlier nature strength names and these later ones focused on learning.
They do. While earlier names might celebrate, say, physical strength like Timur, iron, or that connection to nature, later names increasingly symbolize this love of learning. Think of names like Kolbilge, Lake of Wisdom, or Biljar, wise friend.
That shift itself says a lot about changing cultural values, doesn't it?
It really does. It reflects this societal evolution, valuing intellectual cultivation as a form of beauty, a form of power, maybe alongside or even above just physical strength.
And linked to that is the aspiration for a good life. Social happiness.
Hand in hand, yes. The aspiration for a beautiful life, for social happiness. Names often directly express this hope for the child's well-being, for success.
Like,
Names like Quotluk Bilge, which means fortunate wise, Quotlukwe, fortunate moon, said happy or fortunate, Bakhtiar, fortunate, or Sa'adet, meaning happiness.
they almost function like a built-in blessing, don't they? A wish embedded right there in the child's identity.
That's exactly it. They encapsulate the hopes, the dreams parents have for their children to be strong or graceful, yes, but also wise, fortunate, happy.
So if we bring all these different strains together, what's the big picture we get from this deep dive into Uyghur names?
What really stands out from these sources, I think, is that Uyghur personal names are so much more than just ways to call someone. They're these incredibly rich mirrors,
Sneers reflecting what exactly?
reflecting evolving aesthetic ideals, that aspiration for grandeur in men, for grace in women, and the universal value placed on the beauty of knowledge, a good life, collective happiness.
Each name carrying layers of meaning, cultural, spiritual, moral, from different times.
Exactly. They offer this direct, almost living connection, a glimpse into the Uyghur worldview across history.
So understanding these naming traditions, it's not just linguistics, is it? It's about appreciating how deeply culture, history, values, how they're all encoded in something as basic as a name.
It really is fundamental.
It definitely makes you pause and think, if names really are such vital, symbolic parts of identity and cultural aspiration, what might your own name, or maybe the names most common around you right now, say about the values cherished in your time and place? Something to mull over.